There is a specific sound that you love more than almost any other sound in the world. It isn't music. It isn't the voice of a lover. It is the heavy mechanical click of your front door locking behind you. And just like that, the world vanishes. For the first time in 10 hours, you stop performing. You take off your coat, you take off your shoes, but more importantly, you take off the mask. For a moment, you just stand there in the hallway, breathing in the scent of your own space. That specific, familiar smell of old books, coffee, or just home. And in this moment, a question flickers in the back of your mind, though you rarely let it surface fully. Why does this feel so much like survival? We live in a culture that is obsessed with out there. We are told, from the moment we are children, that life happens outside. Adventure is outside. Success is outside. Love, connection, and destiny are all waiting for you past the threshold of your front door. To stay inside is framed as a failure. It is seen as stagnation, fear, or a refusal to participate in the grand game of life. We have coined terms for it: cocooning, rotting, hiding. We pathologize the desire to stay home as a symptom of something broken: social anxiety, depression, or extreme introversion. But look closer at that feeling you get when the door clicks shut. Is that fear? Or is it relief? Is it a retreat from reality? Or is it a return to it? There is a profound contradiction here, one that most of us feel but few of us articulate. We are told that humans are social animals, craving the pack, the noise, and the constant friction of other minds. Yet for a growing number of people, the most profound moments of clarity, safety, and authentic existence happen within the four walls of their own home. You might tell yourself you are just tired. You might tell your friends you are stealing money, or that you have work to catch up on. But we know that isn't the whole truth, is it? There is a magnetism to the home that defies the logic of extroversion or introversion. It isn't just about recharging your social battery. It is about something far more primal and far more philosophical. It is about the preservation of the self in a world that seems designed to erode it. Think about the modern world for a moment. To exist out there is to be constantly perceived. To be perceived is to be judged, categorized, and canoed. When you are in public, you are an image. You are an employee, customer, a pedestrian, a demographic. You are constantly reacting to stimuli you did not choose: the billboard, the siren, the awkward eye contact, the demands of a boss. You are in a state of perpetual reaction, a pinball bouncing off the bumpers of society's expectations. But when you are home, the dynamic flips. Here, you are not a reaction. You are the creator. You choose the lighting. You choose the temperature. You choose the soundscape. If you want silence, there is silence. If you want chaos, you create it on your own terms. The objects on your shelves are not random. They are artifacts of your memory, totems of who you actually are, not who you pretend to be. This is the great paradox we need to confront. Why do we treat the desire for a controlled, private environment as a weakness when it might actually be the ultimate act of autonomy? Perhaps the people who love staying at home aren't hiding from the world because they are weak. Perhaps they are guarding something. Perhaps they have realized, consciously or unconsciously, that the modern world is not built for the human soul, and that the only place to keep a soul intact is in a sanctuary of one's own making. But this brings us to an unsettling realization. If staying home is actually a rational, protective response to a chaotic world, why does it feel so guilty, Fosdy? Why do you feel that twinge of shame when you cancel plans? Why does the scrolling feed of other people's vacations and parties make you feel like you are doing life wrong, even when you are perfectly content on your couch? There is a tension here, a war between your biology, which craves safety, and your cultural conditioning, which demands exposure. You are caught in the crossfire. You love your home, but you fear that loving it too much means you are disappearing. You worry that by closing the door, you are closing yourself off from possibility. But what if the opposite is true? What if the possibility out there is an illusion? What if the constant movement of society is just a distraction from the void? And what if the people who stay home aren't missing out on life, but are actually the only ones brave enough to sit with themselves? To understand this, we have to dig deeper than simple personality traits. We have to look at the architecture of the human mind and the history of solitude. We have to understand the hidden forces that make the outside world feel so hostile and the inside world feel so magnetic. We have to ask, what are we actually doing when we stay home? Are we building a prison, or are we building a temple? The answer is not what you think. It is not about laziness. It is not about shyness. The answer takes us to next part. Part 1. The hidden problem and its psychological philosophical roots. Why does the world drain you? If we strip away the surface-level complaints, the traffic, the noise, the small talk, what is the fundamental mechanism that makes being out there so exhausting? The answer lies in a concept that the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung called the persona. Jung argued that in order to function in society, every human being must construct a mask. This mask is not you. It is a curated interface designed to mediate between your true inner self and the external world. When you walk into your office, you are not wearing your true face. You are wearing the mask of the competent professional. When you attend a dinner party, you are wearing the mask of the agreeable guest. Wearing this mask requires energy. It is a constant subconscious performance. You are regulating your facial expressions, filtering your thoughts, modulating your tone of voice, and suppressing your true impulses to fit the social contract. For the person who loves staying at home, this performance is not just tiring, it is spiritually corrosive. When you are out there, you are in a state of constant fragmentation. You are splitting yourself into pieces to serve the needs of others. A piece for your boss, a piece for your friends, a piece for the stranger on the bus. You are hemorrhaging your identity bit by bit until there is nothing left for yourself. The home, then, becomes the only place where the persona can be discarded. It is the only place where the fragmented self can reassemble. This is why the relief of walking through your front door is so physical. It isn't just your body relaxing. It is your psyche integrating. The mask falls off, and for the first time all day, the internal and external realities match. But there is a darker force at play here, one that goes beyond simple social exhaustion. We must look at the philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre and his terrifying concept, hell is other people. Sartre didn't mean that other people are annoying. He meant that other people are mirrors. When you are alone, you are the subject of your own universe. You are the protagonist. You define your own reality. But the moment another person enters the room, you are instantly demoted. You become an object in their universe. You are no longer the seer. You are the seen. This is known as the look. When you are out in the world, you are constantly being subjected to the look. You are being perceived, judged, and categorized by 1,000 different minds. You are stripped of your subjectivity and turned into a thing, a body, a statistic, a stereoizy. For the sensitive soul, this objectification is a form of violence. It feels like a theft of the self. Staying home is a rebellion against the look. In the privacy of your home, you reclaim your subjectivity. You are no longer an object to be viewed. You are once again the center of your own experience. The walls of your home block the gaze of the other. In your living room, you are not fat or thin. rich or poor, successful or failing. You simply are. You exist in a state of pure being, liberated from the crushing weight of perception. But this liberation comes with a price. While we retreat to escape the judgment of others, we often run headfirst into a more formidable judge, the internal void. Arthur Schopenhauer, the great pessimist of the 19th century, observed a fundamental tragedy of the human condition. He believed that life swings like a pendulum between two kinds of suffering, pain and boredom. When we are out in the world, striving and struggling, we experience pain, stress, anxiety, conflict. So we retreat to our homes to escape the pain. But once we are safe, once the doors are locked and the silence settles, the pendulum swings to the other side. We are met with boredom. But boredom is too light a word for what Schopenhauer meant. He meant existential vacuity, the realization of emptiness. Many people who love staying at home are actually engaged in a complex dance with this emptiness. They curate their environments meticulously: books, movies, video games, hobbies, comfort food, to fill the silence. We build fortresses not just to keep the world out, but to keep the void at bay. This is where the distinction between solitude and isolation becomes critical. Solitude is the state of being alone without being lonely. It is a constructive, creative state where you engage with your own mind. It is what the philosopher Hannah Arendt called the two-in-one, the silence dialogue between me and myself. This is the domain of the artist, the thinker, the dreamer. When you are effectively staying home, you are cultivating this rich inner garden. You are engaging in what Viktor Frankl might call the search for meaning within a controlled microcosm. But isolation is different. Isolation is when the walls you built to protect yourself start to close in. It is when the safety of the home transforms into the confinement of the cell. Here lies the hidden problem. The comfort of the home is seductive. It is a siren song. It promises safety, but it can easily trap you in a feedback loop of your own making. When you stay home too long, your reality begins to shrink. The challenges of the outside world, which are necessary for growth, disappear. You stop encountering the unexpected. You stop encountering the resistance that sharpens your character. As Nietzsche famously warned, if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. By avoiding the chaotic friction of the world, you risk becoming smooth, frictionless, and fragile. You curate a digital window to the world, social media, news feeds, streaming services, that gives you the illusion of connection without the risk. You become a voyeur of life rather than a participant. This is the brave new world that Aldous Huxley predicted. Not a prison of bars, but a prison of comfort. We are not being forced to stay inside by a totalitarian government. We are seducing ourselves into captivity with soft blankets, high-speed internet, and delivery apps. This psychological dynamic creates a profound dissonance. You love your home. You need your home. It is your sanctuary. But deep down, in the quietest hours of the night, you feel the gnawing suspicion that your sanctuary is slowly becoming a mausoleum. You are safe, yes. But are you alive? This is the paradox we are living in. We retreat to preserve our souls, but in doing so, we risk starving them. We hide from the judgment of the crowd, only to face the judgment of the mirror. We escape the exhaustion of the persona, only to face the terror of the shadow. And the world, in its current state, is doing everything in its power to keep you in this state of suspended animation. The economy, the technology, the culture. It is all designed to make leaving your house unnecessary. But is unnecessary the same as undesirable? The roots of this behavior go deep into the fear of being seen, the exhaustion of performance, and the seductive pull of comfort. But understanding why we do it is only the first step. We now need to look at what this is doing to us. Not just psychologically, but neurologically. What happens to a human brain that decides to disconnect? What is the cost of safety? Because while you are safe inside, something is happening to you. Something silent. Something unteaching. Part 2. The unseen consequence. We often think of staying home as a neutral act. It is simply a pause button on life, right? A way to save money, catch up on sleep, or avoid drama. We view it as a harmless preference, like choosing vanilla over chocolate. But this is a cognitive error. Isolation is not a pause button. It is a biological signal. When you remove yourself from the friction of the world for extended periods, you are not just resting. You are signaling to your brain that the outside world is dangerous, irrelevant, or unnecessary. And your brain, being an incredibly efficient survival machine, begins to rewire itself accordingly. This is the first unseen consequence, the atrophy of tolerance. Think of your ability to handle the world like a muscle. When you go to the gym, you tear muscle fibers so they grow back stronger. When you go out into the world, when you deal with a rude barista, navigate the crowded subway, or handle an awkward conversation, you are microdosing stress. You are tearing the psychological fibers of your comfort zone. In response, your psyche toughens. You develop resilience. You learn that discomfort will not kill you. But when you stay home, you stop lifting the weight of existence. Your tolerance for discomfort shrinks. The muscle of social resilience atrophies. Suddenly, things that should be minor inconvenience, a ringing phone, a knock at the door, a sudden change in plans, start to feel like catastrophic threats. You become sensitized. The threshold for what constitutes too much gets lower and lower, until the mere idea of going to the grocery store feels like preparing for war. You aren't just staying home because you prefer it anymore. You are staying home because you have lost the ability to be anywhere else. This leads to a more insidious consequence, the distortion of time. Have you ever noticed how days spent entirely at home seem to blur together? You wake up, you move from the bed to the couch, the light shifts across the floor, and suddenly it is night again. A week passes in a blink. A month feels like a long weekend. This happens because the human brain encodes time through novelty. We mark the passage of time by landmarks, new locations, new faces, new conversations, new problems. When you remove novelty, you remove the landmarks. Your life becomes a flat, featureless plane. Without the friction of the unexpected, time accelerates. You are not just losing days. You are losing the texture of your life. You are living in a looped GIF, while the rest of the world is living in a movie. But perhaps the most dangerous consequence is what sociologists call the echo chamber of the self. When you are out in the world, your ideas are constantly challenged. Reality has a way of punching you in the face. You might think you are the smartest person in the room until you meet someone smarter. You might think your worldview is perfect until you see something that contradicts it. Reality checks your ego. In the safety of your home, however, you curate your reality. You choose the news you read. You choose the creators you watch. You block the people who annoy you. You are the dictator of a tiny, perfect kingdom. Over time, this unchecked autonomy creates a warped feedback loop. Your biases are reinforced. Your anxieties are magnified because there is no external data to disprove them. You begin to believe that the world is far darker, far scarier, and far more hostile than it actually is, simply because you are observing it through the distorted lens of the internet rather than experiencing it with your own skin. This is the mean world syndrome, a cognitive bias where people who consume large amounts of media believe the world is more dangerous than it actually is. By staying home to avoid the danger, you consume more media, which convinces you to stay home even more. It is a self-sealing trap. And then, there is the neurological cost of comfort. We are biologically wired to seek comfort, but we are evolutionarily designed to thrive in adversity. Our dopamine systems, the reward pathways in our brains, are built to reward effort. The hunt, the chase, the struggle. When you get the reward without the effort, when you can summon food, entertainment, and validation with a single tap on a screen, you short-circuit the system. You enter a state of hedonic adaptation. The comforts that used to bring you joy, the cozy blanket, the video game, the takeout, start to lose their flavor. You need more just to feel okay. You've become numb. This is why the depression of the shut-in is so specific. It isn't a sadness based on tragedy. It is a sadness based on stagnation. It is the gray, heavy feeling of a machine that has been left idling for too long. You feel the urgency to escape, but the trap is invisible. It's made of soft things. It's made of self-care memes that tell you it's okay to cancel plans. It's made of a culture that monetizes your isolation, selling you products to make your prison more comfortable, rather than offering you the key to get out. But here is the most terrifying realization of all. By retreating from the world, you are not just hiding from the bad things. You are hiding from the randomness that brings the good things. The love of your life, your new best friend, the business opportunity that changes everything, the moment of awe that redefines your purpose. None of these things can happen in your living room. They are the products of chaos. They live in the unscripted moments, the accidental collisions of the outside world. When you stay home, you are statistically eliminating the possibility of a miracle. You are safe. You are comfortable. You are in control. But you are also slowly, quietly, erasing yourself from the story of the world. You can feel it, can't you? That low-level hum of anxiety that won't go away, no matter how much me time you take. That is your potential screaming. That is the part of you that knows you were made for more than consumption and comfort. The walls are not protecting you anymore. They are closing in. Part 3. The Rebellion. How to break free. So how do you break the glass? How do you escape a prison that you built yourself? A prison that smells like fresh coffee and feels like sea safety. The standard advice is useless here. Just put yourself out there, they say. Join a club. Say yes more. This advice fails because it misunderstands the problem. It assumes you are simply inactive. But you aren't inactive. You are protective. You are guarding a wounded subjectivity. Telling a person with deep home preference to go party is like telling a person with a broken leg to walk it off. The rebellion must be radical. It requires a complete inversion of how you view the outside world. You must stop seeing the world as a stage where you perform and start seeing it as a laboratory where you experiment. This shift changes everything. When you view the world as a stage, every interaction is high stakes. If you stumble over your words, if you look awkward, if you stand alone, you have failed the performance. The persona cracks. This is terrifying. But in a laboratory, there is no failure. There is only data. If you go to a coffee shop and the barista is rude to you, that isn't a rejection of your soul. That is data. Observation. Humans are irritable before 9 a.m. If you go to a park and sit alone and feel anxious, that isn't a pathology. That is data. Observation. My heart rate elevates in open spaces. You must become a scientist of your own discomfort. This brings us to a practice used by the ancient Stoics, particularly Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. They were some of the most powerful men in history, Yet they practiced voluntary discomfort. They would deliberately wear rough clothing, sleep on hard floors, or eat simple food. Not because they had to, but to prove to themselves that they could. You need to practice social voluntary discomfort. The rebellion begins with small, calculated acts of exposure. You don't go to a loud party. You go to a bookstore. But here is the rule. You do not bring your phone. You do not bring headphones. You strip away the digital armor. This is terrifying because of the spotlight effect. This is a cognitive bias where we believe we are being noticed way more than we actually are. You think everyone in the store is looking at you, judging your posture, analyzing your aloneness. But when you sit there, unprotected by a screen, you realize the first great secret of the rebellion. Nobody cares. Everyone else is trapped in their own movie. They are worrying about their own persona. They are worrying about their own bills, their own insecurities. You are an extra in their background, just as they are extras in yours. Once you realize you are invisible, you become free. This allows you to adopt a new archetype. You are no longer the shut-in or the recluse. You become the Flâneur. The Flâneur is a literary figure from 19th century Paris, the gentleman stroller. The Flâneur wanders the city without a destination, observing society with a detached, curious eye. He is not hiding from the world. He is watching it. He is the sovereign observer. To become a Flâneur is to reclaim your power. When you walk down the street, don't look down at the pavement. Look up. Look at the architecture. Look at the strange way people walk. Look at the chaos of traffic. Turn your gaze outward. By directing your attention to the world, you take the spotlight off yourself. You stop being the object, the thing being looked at, and you become the subject, the one doing the looking. You are not being judged by the world. You are witnessing the world. And as you witness it, you must reclaim the third place. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined the term third place to describe a physical location that is not your home, first place, and not your work, second place. It is a neutral ground, a cafe, a library, a park bench, a gym. Modern society has destroyed third places or monetized them into oblivion. But you must find one. You must claim a physical outpost in reality. This isn't about socializing. You don't have to talk to a single soul. You just have to be there. You have to let your nervous system soak in the ambient friction of other humans. You have to let your biology remember that the presence of other people does not equal death. By doing this, you are performing a neurological reset. You are teaching your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, that the tiger isn't real. You survive the outing. You go home. You realize you are intact. And the next time, the fear is a little quieter. The door feels a little lighter. But the ultimate act of rebellion is even deeper. It is the rejection of perfectionism. Many people stay home because they cannot control the variables outside. Inside, the temperature is perfect, the food is consistent, the entertainment is guaranteed. Outside, things go wrong. It rains, the food is cold, the conversation is awkward. The rebellion requires you to fall in love with the wrongness. You must embrace the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, finding beauty in the imperfect, the impermanent, and the incomplete. The awkward silence in a conversation is not a failure. It is a moment of human texture. The bad weather is not an inconvenience. It is a sensory experience. The chaos is the point. When you stay home, you are choosing a sterile, curated narrative. When you leave, you are choosing the unedited footage of life. And the unedited footage is where the magic hides. The people who broke free, the writers, the explorers, the philosophers, did not do so because they stopped being introverted. They did so because they realized that their home was not a fortress, but a base camp. A base camp is vital. It is where you rest. It is where you stock up. It is where you sleep. But you do not live in a base camp. You launch from it. You must look at your front door, not as a barrier that keeps the world out, but as a portal that lets you out. You are not a refugee hiding from the war. You are a scout heading into the unknown. And here is the strange thing that happens when you start this rebellion. When you start microdosing the chaos of the world, your health actually becomes better. When you are there 24/7, the home becomes stagnant. The air grows stale. But when you leave and return, the contrast restores its sanctity. The silence becomes sweet again, not heavy. The solitude becomes restorative, not isolating. You earn your rest. But there is one final realization remaining, one truth that sits at the very bottom of this psychological well. We have talked about fear. We have talked about comfort. We have talked about the mask. But we haven't talked about the real reason you don't want to leave. The reason that is so terrifying. Most of us never admit it to ourselves. It's not that you are afraid the world will hurt you. It's that you are afraid of what you are capable of if you actually engage with it. Part 4. The ultimate truth. Most powerful realization. The Jonah Complex. We have peeled back the layers. We have looked at the social exhaustion, the addictive nature of comfort, the atrophy of resilience, and the rebellion of the Flâneur. But there is one final layer remaining. It is the bedrock upon which your entire desire to stay home is built. And it is the most uncomfortable truth of all. We assume that we hide because we are afraid of the world. We tell ourselves we are afraid of rejection, of failure, of the awkwardness and the noise. We convince ourselves that we are protecting our peace. But the psychologist Abraham Maslow, the man famous for the hierarchy of needs, discovered a phenomenon in his later years that contradicts this entirely. He called it the Jonah Complex. The Jonah Complex is the fear not of our failure, but of our greatness. Maslow wrote, "We fear our highest possibilities as well as our lowest ones. We are generally afraid to become that which we can glimpse in our most perfect moments." Think about that. Why is the home so magnetic? It isn't just because it's safe. It's because it is a place where nothing is expected of you. When you are alone in your room, you don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be charismatic. You don't have to change the world. You can just exist. You can be mediocre in peace. The walls of your home protect you from the crushing weight of your own potential. To step outside is to step into the arena of consequence. If you go out there and engage with the world, you might discover that you are more powerful than you thought. You might find a cause that demands your service. You might meet a person who demands your love. You might stumble upon a destiny that demands your sacrifice. And that is terrifying. It is far easier to stay home and dream about who you could be than to go out and struggle to become who you must be. Inside, you are a potential genius, a potential lover, a potential hero. The potential remains pure because it is never tested. But outside the potential collapses into reality. And reality is messy. So the ultimate truth is this: you are not hiding from the bad world. You are hiding from the responsibility of your own existence. You are treating your life like a dress rehearsal. You are waiting in the wings, perfecting your lines, adjusting your costume, waiting for the moment you feel ready to step onto the stage. You tell yourself that you are just resting, just preparing, just waiting for the right time. But the lights are already on. The audience is seated. The play is happening right now, and the stage is empty. This brings us to the final paradox, the one that should haunt you in the best possible way. The world is noisy, shallow, and chaotic. That is exactly why it needs you. The people who love staying at home are usually the ones with the deepest inner lives. You are the thinkers, the dreamers, the observers. You are the ones who have cultivated silence. You are the ones who notice the deeper details. You are the ones who feel things deeply. By staying home, you are hoarding the very thing the world is starving for: depth. We live in a culture of surface-level noise. We are drowning in superficiality. The world is desperate for people who can slow down, people who can listen, people who can bring the sanctuary of the home into the chaos of the street. When you lock your door and keep your depth to yourself, you are committing a kind of spiritual theft. You are taking the richness of your soul and burying it in the ground. You think you are small. You think the world is too big for you. But the reality is that you are vast, and you are shrinking yourself to fit into a room. The home was never meant to be a bunker. It was meant to be a battery. You charge the battery so you can power the machine. If you leave the battery on the charger forever, it doesn't just stay full, it degrades. Energy that is not used turns into anxiety. Creativity that is not expressed turns into neuroses. Love that is not given turns into loneliness. So, what is the shift? How do we finally turn the key and open the door? We must embrace the philosophy of memento mori. Remember death. It seems dark, but it is the only light bright enough to wake us up. Imagine for a moment that you are 90 years old. You are sitting in this same room. The chair is the same. The silence is the same. You are safe. You have successfully avoided all the awkward conversations, all the bad weather, all the rejections, and all the chaos. You have spent decades in the perfect comfort of your sanctuary. But as the sun sets on that final day, you will not look back and smile at how safe you were. You will look at the door. You will wonder who walked past it while you were inside. You will wonder what version of yourself is still waiting out there on the pavement. The version that never got to exist because you were too busy being comfortable. Regret is the only ghost that can walk through locked doors. You do not have to burn your house down. You do not have to become an extrovert. You do not have to stop loving the silence. But you must realize that the home is a place to return to, not a place to remain. The joy of coming home, that magical feeling of the key turning in the lock, only exists if you have been somewhere else. You cannot have the relief of sanctuary without the risk of the journey. The two define each other. So here is the challenge. Tomorrow, when the urge to retreat hits you, when the gravity of the couch tries to pull you down, allow yourself to feel the fear. Acknowledge the comfort. And then, grab your keys. Not because you have to, not because society tells you to, but because there is a world out there that is incomplete without you. Open the door, step over the threshold, and let the world happen to you. Because you are not a ghost haunting your own house. You are alive, and it is time to prove it. If this resonated, consider subscribing. But if your silence feels less like safety and more like you are disappearing, watch this next. We explore the deep psychology of feeling invisible and how to finally be seen. Click here. I'll see you there.